Westfall. This region was once known as the breadbasket of Stormwind, but desperation and strife has come to these rolling hills. It did not come at the hands of the Horde, the Scourge, or even the Legion. No, it came at the hands of man. Years of neglect brings us to where we are today, and a hushed rumor and whisper sings amongst the dry, dusty plains that Judgment Day is coming. Since we last left off, our Death Knight Graven has been trying to adjust to his new life amongst the Alliance. He's been growing his knowledge of alchemy and herbalism, as well as honing his skills in the art of blood, taking his way through dungeon after dungeon as he listens to the rumors and tales of his party. They seem friendly enough, but he can't help but wonder how they feel about him. Aside from this, though, he's been fishing. Lots and lots of fishing. After these last few weeks, Graven has decided, in order to properly understand his new life, he should understand the world he has reawoken in, to see if something sparks memories of his past life. Traveling through Goldshire, he sees Marshal Dugan, and after a brief conversation he learns of the region of Westfall, and is sent to find a Lieutenant Horatio Lane. After a quick ride through the rather green Elwyn Forest westward, and crossing a bridge, we find ourselves at the scene of what looks like an accident. Meeting Horatio Lane, we learn that the victims are the Furlbrows, a well-known couple in the area, and their horse. We also learn that it's not an accident, but murder. Horatio Lane asks us to question the nearby homeless and drifters that aren't really in the mood to talk. Graven has to use his chilling persuasion through these negotiations and uncover a few clues. 1. The murder was rather loud, and lots of human voices were heard. 2. The murder smelled rather rich. 3. Some gnolls had been seen leaving the scene of the crime just before they arrived. And 4. Murlocs had been seen scouting the area recently. Of course, Horatio isn't buying the story about the gnolls and Murlocs. The crime scene doesn't have any evidence of either groups having murdered the Furlbrows. Yet, with not much to go off, he sends you out to search for clues once more. Of course, when a Death Knight goes out searching for clues, he's bound to get a bit messy. Returning to Horatio with what little evidence we think the gnolls and the Murlocs were holding, we are quickly dismissed as if we were sent on a wild goose chase. We learn of a man called Two Shoes Lou, an old informant that has been set up shop at the Furlbrows' old pumpkin farm. So, after a quick ride, we find ourselves at the pumpkin farm, and well, Two Shoes Lou at first doesn't want to talk to us, but one mention of Horatio and he's more receptive. Dirt pies, kobolds, and caves of mystery. Next we help out the locals, first by making some dirt pies. Who knew some fresh dirt and coyote tails were the dish? Yum. Yeah. After that, it's off to Django Load Mine, where we help Mick Hannigan rest easy by purging some pesky kobolds. But more importantly, we uncover a rather interesting development. A two-headed ogre and some shadowy female figure. What is this about dawning? After a quick trip to reapply our rune forge to our new weapon, we find ourselves confronting some thugs who admitted to murdering the Furlbrows. However, once again, they are talking about this shadowy lady. After taking out the thugs, 2 shots ring out, and we rush to find Two Shoes Lou is no more. He had a right to be scared. It is now that we start to realize Horatio has been watching too many CSI Miami episodes and is starting to fry his mind. Horatio is still having trouble putting all the clues together, so he sends us over to the Saldins farm to see if they know anything. Interestingly, the Saldins don't really care much for Lieutenant Horatio Lane. After having a chat with the farmer and his wife Salma, we decide to help them clear out a few rampaging harvesters and gather up ingredients for Westfall stew. This stew actually looks far more edible than the dirt pies. These deeds urged us favor of the Saldins, and they asked us to bring some of the stew to their adopted daughter Hope in Sentinel Hill. A short ride brings us to Sentinel Hill. Now, Sentinel Hill looks a little different. However, despite not having a memory of actually being there, Graven is rather confused. Of course, shaking off that confusion, he finds a large central tower. And there, we realize that the whole entire area is under gnoll attack, and the Westfall Brigade is in need of help. We notice a worgen and stockades being rather threatening, and some rumors about an old sea captain on the coast. Now with the stew in hand, we find Hope Saladins, and she's quite happy we've arrived. But instead of taking the stew for herself, she asks us to give it to the homeless around Sentinel Hill, saying, "We must work together to show that there is hope." that with the dawning day, a better life comes. So like any good Death Knight, we're off to slaughter, tearing through gnolls and staining the dry earth with their blood. Also, we're being nice and handing out stew. Being a Death Knight has its ups and downs. Returning to the tower with the people fed and with the gnoll attack orders in hand, we learn that a man named Helix is behind this, as well as some unnamed admiral. Once more, we hear about a dawning, and even Hope tells us that we've done a good deed, and our act will reflect when Judgment Day comes. Marshal Stoutmantle tells us that an SI-7 agent has been tracking Helix for 2 weeks, and we should meet up with her near Mortwake Tower to the south. Of course, on our way, we encounter Django Spothide and his mangy band of gnolls. Now, with the gnolls running for the hills, licking their paws, we encounter the SI agents laid back on a fallen log, her rifle aimed at the tower. Helix is inside, and she wants us to go in there and gather information, giving us cover with her rifle as we approach. Now, one invisibility potion later, we find Helix atop the tower, alongside the shadowy figure. The gnolls have failed to take Sentinel Hill, but they have not failed at distracting the Westfall Brigade. Judgment Day approaches, and, well, I'm starting to get rather suspicious about a certain lady I met not long before. However, they mention a rally, and Moonbrook. This information must reach the Marshal. Marshal Stoutmantle listens to our story, and sends us to Moonbrook right away, telling us of a unit of Alliance forces, and of a shaman he allied himself with in Northrend. Northrend. That word rings back in the back of Graven's mind. Those thoughts aside, we travel across the plains to Moonbrook to meet Captain Alpert. Captain Alpert asks us to look for evidence and some propaganda, but soon after entering Moonbrook, we find out that red bandana-wearing thugs and bandits are roaming all around. Luckily, it's nothing a few strikes from a rune blade can't clear up. With the evidence in hand, we return to the captain. As he examines the evidence, he sees references to a V, but the only V he knows of is Van Cleef, who died many years ago. Mystery aside, a large crowd gathers in Moonbrook, and Graven makes his way towards it. There, the shadowy figure stands upon a cart, and tells us how the plight of the people of Westfall is the fault of the Kingdom of Storwind, and the Alliance, and how they must pay for their actions, how today they are reborn. Returning to Alpert, he is gravely concerned, but says we must uncover the identity before we can request aid from Stormwind. With the aid of the Draenei shaman, Thorlius, Graven enters the Dead Mines and relives the memories of what happened many years ago. We watch as a band of heroes defeats Van Cleef, but we also see a sad, lost little girl rush to her father's headless body. Marshal Stoutmantle is shocked to learn that Van Cleef indeed had a daughter, and now regrets sending in those team of heroes. But suddenly the sound of gnolls falls back, and hope strolls forth. I suspected this much. Or should I say, Vanessa Van Cleef. Now admiring her striking attire, Graven is spared capture, as Vanessa proclaims the rise of the Brotherhood once more, frees Admiral Ripsnarl, and at last Horatio learns why the Furboros were murdered. They were the only ones that recognized her face and knew who she really was, so she had to end them. As she commands her forces to set fire to Sentinel Hill, the Marshal orders us back to Stormwind to tell the King all. Now after fleeing back to Stormwind, we ride to inform the King. Young King Anduin orders forth a battalion of soldiers to Westfall, and orders our return. An old threat is renewed. Returning to Sentinel Hill, we find it ablaze, with defiance all around. The citizens have moved to the tower, and Marshal Stoutmantle is distraught. 5 years of work gone in seconds. Beaten and still waiting the troops the King promised, the Marshal tells us we must wait. That defeating the Brotherhood will take planning, and instead of hanging around, he tells us of other threats, specifically one in Redridge. That, folks, pretty much wraps up the main storyline of Westfall. However, the rumors of the captain along the coast is an interesting tale, one of sadness and menacing murlocs. There's also a nice treasure mission if you get lucky with some drops. Although not key to completing the Loremaster requirements, it does give us a nice Captain Sanders shirt. Well, thanks for watching. Now let me know if you like this style of video better. A little voiceover, a lot shorter. I think it's pretty interesting. Alright, have a good day. See you around.